Hall. My name is Colleen Townsend. I'm a family physician here in Napa, a mother of teens, and I'm the Napa Opioid Safety Coalition's co-chair. The Napa Opioid Safety Coalition is a local collaboration whose goal is to transform the health of our Napa communities by leveraging partnerships that prevent opioid addiction and support substance use treatment through safe opioid prescribing, harm reduction, education, and easy access to treatment. Tonight, we are partnering with the Napa County Office of Education during Red Ribbon Week to highlight some key areas of prevention related to substance use and opioid use disorders. Red Ribbon Week is a nationally recognized week to spread awareness about drug use prevention and to promote drug-free futures among our youth and in our communities. We hope that you'll leave today with an awareness of how fentanyl has dangerously impacted our Napa communities, as well as increase your knowledge about fentanyl and how to talk about this drug with your family and friends. Tonight, we'll bring you some panelists with diverse backgrounds that are dedicated to bringing awareness to the threat that fentanyl brings to our youth. We'll end tonight with an opportunity for Q&A and with a few community announcements. Next slide. So I want to highlight that the Napa Opioid Safety Coalition hosted a similar fentanyl poisoning town hall earlier this year in April. This presentation gave a well-rounded view of the crisis from various professional backgrounds. And if you're interested in learning more, you may watch this recorded version. Please visit the Napa County Office of Education's Catalyst Coalition's page on their website or the Napa Opioid Safety Coalition site that you can see here. The sticker, last month, the Napa Opioid Safety Coalition held a county-wide contest for youth to learn about the dangers of fentanyl and express what they had learned in a very creative way. There were 4 top designs, each one $100 gift cards. Emmeline, who is a senior at Vintage High School, was our top winner, and this design highlights the trending, colorful rainbow fentanyl with pills hidden within the image. This is childlike writing because this really imitates how this drug is advertised to children and how youth are getting information about fentanyl, and how also highlights how fentanyl can go easily undetected. The design has been made into stickers and will be passed out with future fentanyl education. Fentanyl is a rapidly growing public health crisis. On the national level, the DEA launched a "One Pill Can Kill" campaign, revealing that 4 out of 10 pills in the street drugs are laced with a lethal dose of fentanyl. The current administration has issued a press release to act in areas of prevention, harm reduction, and treatment to curb this epidemic. No community is safe from fentanyl, and what we can do is learn more about the dangers and learn how to talk to each other, our families, and our communities about preventing this drug from entering into our communities. You can't see, taste, or smell fentanyl. It makes detecting it very, very difficult. It can take the form of pills, powders, and liquids. It's cheap and very easy to produce. This crisis is spreading to young adults through the use of social media platforms like Instagram and Snapchat. Drug dealers are using messaging apps and emojis to make drug deals. They even have it mailed directly to people's houses in discreet packaging. Between 2018 and 2020, among youth, so those aged 10 to 19 years in California, emergency department visits for non-fatal opioid doses more than tripled. Opioid-related overdose deaths increased by 407%, and this was largely driven by fentanyl. Fentanyl-related overdose deaths increased by 625%. Next, we're going to move on to a series of panelist speakers. The first to present is Sergeant Paul Kuhn. Sergeant Kuhn was hired by the Napa County Sheriff's Office in 2016 and is currently assigned to the Coroner Civil Division. Sergeant?
Thank you, Doctor. Hello, everyone. I want to start by giving some numbers from last year for some comparisons going on to this year. In 2021, we had a total of 18 opioid-related deaths. Out of those 18, 15 involved fentanyl. 12 of those were fentanyl combined with other causes, whether it be drug, alcohol, or otherwise. And 3 of those were fentanyl only, which were acute fentanyl intoxication deaths. The overwhelming majority of those occurred within the greater area of Napa or the unincorporated county area surrounding Napa City. For 22 so far, and this is just a tally that we've got on completed cases, which means we've got a cause of death and or a pathologist report back. It's not necessarily indicative of being year to date or any particular date this year. We've got a total of 7 opioid related deaths so far. This year, all of those so far are involving fentanyl. 6 of those are fentanyl combined with something else, drug or alcohol related, most likely. And 1 of them is fentanyl only, an acute fentanyl intoxication. Out of those cases, 5 of them are in the greater Napa area. We've got 1 in St. Helena and 1 in Angwin. The ages of those decedents range from 17 to in their 60s. We've got multiple cases pending, which we don't have finalized yet, which may have fentanyl involvement related in the cause of death. We are on pace at this point to have similar numbers to last year, possibly slightly increased.
Thanks for that information. Next to present is Lieutenant Ryan Woolworth. Lieutenant Woolworth was hired by Napa County at the Sheriff's Office in 2004 and is currently assigned as a task force commander of Napa's Special Investigation Bureau. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Doctor. Appreciate it. Fentanyl, just like it's become popular across the country, it's become more popular in Napa County. We're seeing it more and more. We're seeing a lot more overdoses, and we're seeing a lot more people that are using it on purpose. While there's many accidental overdoses, which happens often because most users are unsure of the actual quantity of fentanyl they're taking. So the dosage for a normal person is a 0.1 gram of fentanyl. Unfortunately, with the consistency of fentanyl, you don't know exactly where the majority of that drug is within, say, a pile of powder fentanyl. So they could be taking all of the fentanyl in one dosage, which they end up accidentally overdosing on. Fentanyl forms that we've seen are a chalk-like form, so very similar to a sidewalk chalk. Colors are white, and they vary from a green, a pastel green, blue, pink, orange. I know it's popular in the news right now with the everybody talking about rainbow fentanyl and the pills. We have not seen that here. We are seeing different colors of pills. We're seeing different colors of chalk and different colors of fentanyl, but not the quote unquote rainbow variety that's been out there in the media. So with the Narcan, Narcan is providing people with an opportunity to maybe be a little more risky with fentanyl. We are definitely seeing people using more fentanyl, even though they've overdosed before. So some of the overdoses that we've had this year in the last 6 months are repeated overdoses. So people are overdosing, they're using Narcan, they're being saved by the Narcan, and then they're going back to the fentanyl, using it again, overdosing again, using Narcan again. So we are seeing that as well. That's all I have right now. Thank you.
Thanks for that information. Nyla Francis will speak next. She is an EMS specialist with the Napa County Emergency Medical Services Agency. She's worked in a 9/11 system as an EMT, paramedic, and has a lot of experience administering Narcan and teaching people how to use it. Thanks for joining us, Nyla.
Okay, there we go. Sorry, couldn't find my button. Can you see the presentation view of my slideshow? Okay, excellent. Hi, everybody. I'm Nyla. I work in the EMS agency. My background is a paramedic by trade, so I do have experience giving Narcan. The goal of my presentation today is really to demedicalize this as much as possible. It's a very easy thing to give. I think the hardest piece is just really knowing when it should be given. So that's what I'm hoping to kind of break down for everyone today. So thank you for joining. All right, our objectives is, what is Narcan? How do I recognize an overdose? What are the steps to giving Narcan? And then when should I start CPR? Because it's important to know when it's time to do that. Sometimes you're going to have to consider both things. So we're just going to go over that kind of briefly. So what is Narcan? Also known as naloxone. It blocks the action of opioids at the receptor sites and reverses respiratory depression. So that's a really key thing. That's what Narcan does, is it will get you breathing better. So that's what it's intended to do. So this is basically Narcan displacing the opioids that are bound to the receptor site. So it immediately displaces it. And if it works, you should see the effects almost right away. So it works very quickly. So most importantly, how do I recognize an overdose? The biggest thing you're looking for is breathing. If it doesn't look right or it doesn't look good to you, the things you're looking for, if it looks really slow, or they're not taking deep breaths, like it's very shallow, or if it's very noisy breathing, like you can hear them gargling or gasping or snoring, those aren't normal breathing signs. So you want, that's a sign, an indicator of ineffective or poor breathing. So that's a really big indicator you want to be looking for. The other things that go along with it are skin signs. So once your breathing starts to become ineffective, your skin signs are going to reflect that as well. So if you have a darker complexion, you will present more gray or ashen. If you have a lighter complexion, you're going to present more blue, and you're looking for those skin signs kind of in the lips and the fingers. And then the next piece is your responsiveness. So decreased level of responsiveness or altered, kind of out of it, not acting right. Those are things to look for. And then you can also be completely unresponsive as well. And this is kind of where I know I get questions on this, is if you're completely unresponsive and you're not breathing at all, that's the type of person that will need chest compressions or CPR. But we'll get into that a little bit later. So these are the three indicators. These are what you're looking for if you're suspecting an overdose, but breathing again is really the key factor here. So just as an overview for just opiates in general, the ways that you can consume these, there's the oral route. So the pills that we're mostly talking about in today's town hall. So pills, transcutaneous. So sometimes people will have fentanyl patches for prescribed medication. There's intravenous, so you have the IV drug use, and then subcutaneous, which is basically if you've used drugs the IV route and you've kind of destroyed your veins, people will inject into the skin, just kind of underneath the skin layer, and that's called skin popping, but that is a way of ingesting the medication or the opiate. And then inhalation, you can also smoke fentanyl as well. So those are ways of ingesting it. All right, so this is honestly, I think, the easiest part, the steps to giving Narcan. First thing you do, you're going to check them for responsiveness and call 911. I kind of put it as a simultaneous step because it's you check for responsiveness pretty quickly. You shake and tap and try to get them to wake up, then call 911 right away. I like this picture because it shows, people have cell phones. They're not going to be calling from a landline most likely. So you call 911. You put your phone on speaker and put your phone down next to the person or near you so you can be hands-free. Dispatchers are wonderful about providing instructions before EMS gets there. So this is the first step, check for responsiveness, call 911. If you suspect an overdose based on all the signs and symptoms we just went over, you're going to go ahead and give it. So this is an example. This is what the nasal spray looks like. If you've ever had to give yourself Flonase for allergies, you already know how to give Narcan. It's really just that simple. You put the tip into the nose and then you press the plunger down, and that's really it. I have a short video I'll show where they demonstrate doing this. So you'll give the Narcan, and then the last step is to place the person into recovery position. So that's just basically getting them on their side. You bend their leg in front of them, put their arm underneath them so they kind of can hold themselves there, even if they're fairly unresponsive. The reason for this is sometimes after Narcan administration, a byproduct of that is people will wake up and vomit. If they do that, this helps protect their airway so that vomit doesn't go back down into their lungs. So then you might need to give more Narcan. You might need to give more than one dose. And this is fairly common, especially with the fentanyl that's in pills these days is I would almost expect this. So the time frame you're looking for is 2 to 3 minutes. So if you haven't seen their breathing get better, or if you haven't seen a change where they look like they're getting better, go ahead and give more. Narcan is a very safe medication. You can't hurt them with this, so it's very benign. So if you're not sure, just go ahead and give more. There's no harm in doing that. Okay, so I need to show you this video. It's about 2 minutes. This is a video that was produced by the makers of that nasal spray where they actually show you the steps. So I'm gonna go ahead and play it. And the sound should work. Someone let me know if it doesn't work. Otherwise, I'll just keep playing it. Oh, hold on. Here we go. I just skipped right over it. There we go.
If you encounter someone who is unresponsive and you suspect an overdose, first shake their shoulders and shout their name.
Kevin.
Ask if he or she is okay.
Hey, can you hear me?
Check for signs of an overdose, unresponsive to touch or voice. Breathing is slow, uneven, or has stopped. Snoring, gasping, or gurgling sounds. Fingernails or lips are blue or purple. Administer Narcan nasal spray as quickly as possible if someone is unresponsive and an opioid overdose is suspected, even when in doubt, because prolonged respiratory depression may result in damage to the central nervous system or even death. Lay the person on their back to receive a dose of Narcan nasal spray. Remove Narcan nasal spray from the box. Peel back the tab with the circle to open it. Remove and review the printed quick start guide inside the package. Hold the Narcan nasal spray with your thumb on the bottom of the plunger and your first and middle fingers on either side of the nozzle. Do not press the plunger to test or prime the device. If you do, you will waste all or part of the dose of medication. Tilt the person's head back and provide support under the neck with your hand. Gently insert the tip of the nozzle into one nostril until your fingers on either side of the nozzle are against the person's nose. Press the plunger firmly to give the full dose of Narcan nasal spray. Remove the device from the nostril after giving the dose. After you have given this.
Okay, so I usually stop it there. One thing that they don't state in the beginning is to call 911. So just make sure you call 911 first. You want to get EMS and PD going right away. Okay. So I just want to talk briefly about starting CPR. It's really important to know when to do this. So when should I start CPR? If they're completely unconscious and they're not breathing, that's when it's time to start CPR. And it's tough. Sometimes you may not be sure. Just go with your go with the information you have in front of you. If you have 911 on the line, the dispatchers are going to walk you through that step by step, and they're fabulous at that. So, and also if you're just not sure, go ahead and default to CPR. It's really important. And this is kind of the campaign that's out there from the American Heart Association is call, push, shock. So call 911, start hands only CPR. There's no more mouth to mouth anymore. It's just 2 hands hard and fast on the center of the chest, and then use an AED, an automated external defibrillator. I hope most people have heard of that, but it is it's where you put the paddles on the chest and you can give the heart a shock if it's in a rhythm that needs to be shocked. But it's really important to know this. The dispatcher will ask you if there's one in your area. So, and this is a new slide I put in there, but put in here. I know most people are probably at home right now. But when you go to work or you're at school, this is a really good thing to know who can locate the nearest AED to them. So when you go to work tomorrow, see if you can find it or if it's in your building. That's good thing to know. Okay, so is it okay to give Narcan if you're doing CPR? So if you've decided to do CPR, you can absolutely give Narcan too. Just make sure you've called 911, that you have CPR going, you've ruled out that there's no AED or you've been able to find one. And then if you have someone else that can help you give the Narcan, then go ahead and do it. Once you start compressions, don't stop to give Narcan. So, okay. So I'll wrap this up here. Just one more slide. The considerations for giving Narcan is, I mentioned this, it's very safe. If you're in doubt, you think they may need Narcan, but you're not sure, go ahead and just give it. It's a very safe medication. And again, you're really looking for like poor breathing, ineffective breathing as the biggest sign. One thing I want to spend just a minute on here is the person can wake up agitated, combative, or vomiting. So there are some safety concerns with this. It's not going to happen every time, but it's something that you have to be prepared for. We already talked about the vomiting, that may happen, but sometimes you can essentially bring people into an immediate state of withdrawals or withdrawal symptoms, which are very, very painful. So sometimes people can wake up very agitated and violent. So if you see those signs, just go ahead and remove yourself from that scene as best as possible or create some distance. And then the last thing here is, as I mentioned, you might need more than one dose. So be prepared for that, and just make sure 911 has been called before you give it. And I think that's the end of my slide. And I know we'll do questions and stuff at the end. So thank you, everybody. I will stop sharing.
Great, thank you so much, Nyla. Really informative, really simple steps to follow. So I really appreciate that information. And just everyone remember your homework to look for your AED at your place of work tomorrow. Thanks so much. Our next speaker is Dulce Murillo, is an alcohol and other drugs counselor for Aldea, a nonprofit here in Napa. She has been with Aldea for 5 years and has experienced working with both prevention and treatment services throughout Napa Valley. Dulce, we look forward to your information.
Hello. So my name is Dulce Murillo. I am a prevention and treatment counselor with Aldea. Today I'm going to talk to you about our services as well as some tips to talk to your children. So how to talk to your children about substance use. One of the big things that's going to stick with our middle and high school age youth is really talking about those long-term consequences, because they are at an age where they can understand how substances can affect them later on in life. Also talking about specifically discussing the consequences at home, it's important for them to know what is going to be happening in their home, what punishments are going to happen, what conversations will happen, because if they don't receive that from you, they will ask other friends, maybe just go based off what they've seen other friends have, the way that their parents react to them as well. Another way is to involve your children into extracurricular activities. The reason why to do that is because it lessens up their free time. It also is a natural high. It gives them those feel-good feelings that substances would do, or what a lot of youth say that they use substances for. It also increases their motivation to have extracurricular activities, things to look forward to. And also helping them identify stressful situations is a very good thing to do with middle school and high school age youth, because in that situation, you are able to identify when they might be more prone to using substances. So for example, changes in friends, changes in school, things like that. How to talk to your youth specifically about fentanyl. So starting a conversation with your child is very, very important. Sometimes we feel like we can't have these conversations because then we introduce substances to them, but really it is out there. They will find out about it from other people. So just be transparent to them about these substances, having these conversations about what it does, what do people receive from it, and how to manage pain in other situations if they are looking for pain management or even stress management as well. Explain to them what specifically fentanyl is and why it's so dangerous. Talk to them about how it's a very strong opioid. It doesn't really look like different medication. That's why it's very hard to know what a fentanyl pill is and if it's a regular pill. And talking to them about the causes of how much could actually cause an overdose. We know that 2 grains of salt is enough to cause that. And letting them know that it also could be mixed in with other substances as well. It's not just a fentanyl pill. It could be any other substance that could be laced with it as well. If you know that your child is using opioids, focus the conversation on the safety of the drug use. Talk to them. Talk about how you as a parent and caregiver want them to be safe instead of focusing on punishment for drug use. And know how to recognize an overdose, which is what we just learned about in the previous presentation. Having these conversations and being open with them is something that will increase safety for them and having them be knowledgeable about what it's out there. Aldea has fentanyl test strips that we provide to our prevention youth and treatment youth. So it's something that is meant to be focused on harm reduction to get our youth to think about the substance they are consuming. So if your youth is in prevention, which I'll talk about in a bit as well, or in treatment, they have access to these test strips. And this is in collaboration with the Michael Leonardi Foundation as well. A couple more tips, about how to prevent alcohol and drug use with your youth is choose empathy and have open communications. The moment that youth feel like they can no longer go to you to have these conversations, they will go to other people that maybe might not have the best interest in for them. Choose an appropriate place and time to have these conversations with your youth as well. A therapist that used to work at Aldea said that the best place to talk to your youth about substance use or any conversation that might be a little bit more difficult to have is in the car. And the reason for that is because they are listening. They might not have to respond, but it's a space where they will take in all the information that you are sharing. This is also a continued conversation that is not a one-time check off the box that I did it. It is continued, especially identifying those times and spaces with youth that, like I said earlier, might be stressful. Changes in school, changes in relationships, breakups, stresses in school, everything, things like that is very stressful for our youth. So this is a time for you as a parent to have that continued conversation with them. Be aware of your own specific use as well. A lot of the times parents will use and not really be aware of the effect that youth are receiving for it. Sometimes, even if it's moderate use for a child, the moment that the adult is using a motorized vehicle as well, that substance is no longer as dangerous as it is. And setting expectations, what is going to happen if there is substance use? Knowing the resources to also reach out to as well. So like I said, I'm also a prevention counselor. We are located at every single middle school and high school in the public school system here with NVUSD up to Calistoga and including Santa Elena. So these are all the schools that we serve. We have a prevention counselor at every single one of these schools. If you have a youth that you would like to have them learn more about substance use, maybe they're not necessarily using, but you want them to just be educated a little bit more. We have a whole curriculum that goes through all the substances, specifically including fentanyl as well, something that we've added this last year. We talk about coping skills, stress, how to deal with stress, relationships, all the stresses that youth could go through in their life at this special time in life. We have those services available through the wellness programs. I believe that all the schools here in the district have a wellness center. All these services are accessed through those wellness centers. These services are also confidential. This is why it's really important for you to have those conversations with your youth, so they are open and able to talk to you about being in these services as well. Now, treatment services. So like I said, I'm also a treatment counselor. So if you have a youth that is struggling with substance use, they are actually actively using, and you want to support them in reduction of their use, we have those services available to Napa and Solano County residents. We are now serving ages 12 to 21, and we accept all insurances, and we have a sliding scale available. Some of the services that we offered are assessments, individual and group outpatient counseling services. We serve at-risk youth, which means someone who maybe is in recovery or they're not necessarily using consistently, but would like support to stop. Outpatient, somebody who is using and they'd like to reduce. And then intensive outpatient is someone who's struggling with maybe harder substances, but it's not necessarily residential. So those are the services that Aldea offers. However, we do the assessments for residential, and at that point we would connect with county to find the most appropriate residential. We also provide urine analysis testing. We have 4 instant panels that we test for, which include THC, alcohol, cocaine, and amphetamines. We are able to test levels of THC. If there's any other substances that we need to test for, they will go to our lab. We also provide the family support, collaterals, target case management to include the family in the youth services, and recovery services. Once a youth has completed their services, they are still able to meet with us and engage in that recovery aftercare work. If you guys have any questions, you guys always can contact us or send an email to info@aldea.org. If you even have questions of maybe if someone might be eligible for these services, or if you just want to double check who the counselor is at the prevention school, you can always contact us. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Dulce. That was really a lot of information, but really great tips about how to start the conversation, how to walk it through, and then also what are other resources for kids, parents, and families. Thank you so much. Our next speaker is Celeste Gonzalez, who is a project coordinator for the Youth Support Services and Outreach at the Napa County Offices of Education. Celeste.
Hi, thank you for the introduction. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen because I have a few slides. So the prevention team here at the Napa County Office of Education, or NCOE for short, we have been attending lots of back to school events at this beginning of the school year. So the purpose of them is to get our foot in the door, be able to reach parents. And through this, we have been able to reach hundreds of parents to be able to inform them about the dangers of fentanyl. We also gave them information to take home about fentanyl and to help review with their children when they're ready. We also gauge the knowledge of the social host ordinance in Napa, and we help spread awareness of that. Just some numbers if you're interested, we were able to reach parents and guardians from Redwood Middle School, Silverado Middle School, American Canyon Middle and High School, Vintage High School, New Technology High School, and then also schools in Up Valley. And Red Ribbon Week, which is happening right now. From the 23rd to the 31st, most schools are celebrating it. It is to raise awareness about the killing and the destruction caused by drugs in America. And we've helped by introducing some activities and presentations to some different middle and high schools across Napa County. So for example, we have our ACE after school program, which is run by NCOE. So at Shear, Silverado, Snow, and also Calistoga Junior Senior High School, we were able to reach also Mariposa students at New Technology High School, Vintage High School, Napa High School, American Canyon Middle and High School, and also Needles Middle School. We also hosted presentations for Camille Creek leadership and Mariposa students. For Red Ribbon Week specifically, we wanted to include lots of information and in-person activities throughout the week. So some of those included lunchtime student-led groups. So whether it was students from specific clubs or from leadership, they were in charge and leading those groups so that it was the leadership experience for them. We also hosted door decorating contests, so including information on Red Ribbon Week and fentanyl within their curriculum, and they decorated their doors with Halloween themes, but also incorporating the drug-free messaging from Red Ribbon Week. We also hosted trivia competitions, presentations, reflection and journaling activities, and then another thing that we were really happy to be able to do is to host Dia de los Muertos celebrations at Camille Creek, and then there's also some other schools that have been doing that independently, which is amazing. The students were also given official Red Ribbon Week materials and goodies and swag, and all of it has drug-free messaging to supplement all the activities that they were doing throughout the week. Another prevention activity that we have coming up very soon and that we've been doing in the past year are wellness days that we've been doing at all NDUSD high schools and Up Valley too. These wellness days range from short lunchtime activities with tables to 2-hour blocks of time where we're able to connect with students about the importance of mental health and wellness. And we also were able to give students the tools to cope with stress and anxiety in a healthy way, which included last year a gardening activity. We also included some journaling prompts, just helping them understand that taking care of themselves and their body is also a form of prevention, and making sure that you're taking care of yourself in healthy ways reduces any type of resource that that using substances might help with any type of coping. We also gave them stuff that helps reduce anxiety, like coloring pages with coloring pencils, stickers, fidget toys, and a lot of other goodies. We also gave students information on how to seek mental health services after school. And also we gave them information on substances, including information on fentanyl poisonings, and how to spot a potential overdose. For wellness days, our first wellness day of this official school year is coming up next week on November 4th at Napa High School. And planning for other wellness days across Napa County has already started, which is great. So once we have more information on dates and times, that will start to be released by the schools, by the school social workers, counselors, and also via social media too. So we really want to make sure that kids are hearing the messages, learning healthy coping mechanisms at these wellness days. For these wellness days, we are partnering with Mentis, which is the local mental health organization experts here in Napa. And then Up Valley, we're also partnering with the Up Valley Family Center in order to reach that location. It's easy for them to feel separated because they're so far away. So we want to make sure that everybody is included. This picture just shows some of the stuff that we're giving away. Some, stickers, colored pencils, and then those fidget toys are right there, kind of off center too. Those are really good if you need a physical way of relieving stress. And then we're planning for future events. Some things to look forward to is in April is Alcohol Awareness Month, and we typically like to go into the schools to talk about alcohol because we're in wine country. Sometimes it gets forgotten that alcohol is also a substance and like a little normalized. So we also want to remind students about that. We also host a lot of presentations and activities during Mental Health Awareness Month, which is in May. A lot of schools like to have their wellness days during May, so that's something to keep in mind. And in May on the 10th is also Fentanyl Awareness Day, where we'll be doing some online campaigns for that. And then going towards the end of the school year, we always have our Safe and Sober prop campaigns, where we present schools with materials, posters, stickers that they can give out to students when they purchase their prom tickets to remind them to stay sober during prom. So that there's no drunk driving incidences, there's no incidences where EMS has to be called. So hopefully just giving them more information on that. And then we also have more things coming up in the future that we're still in the works and still planning for. But if you want to learn more, or even if you want to get involved or listen to what's being planned and give your input, please email me. I put my email there. We are always welcome to having people voice their opinion and give their own insight. We are focusing on the community, so community voice is really important. So please let us know if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Celeste. That really rounded out our presentations. I first want to thank all of our presenters for the information that you shared this evening, and I hope we've answered some questions or queries that you may have had in the audience with regard to fentanyl, some of the resources available in our community, and what our how this substance has entered into our community. Now we're on for a question and answer period. Please ask your questions through the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, and we will be able to direct our questions to our presenters so that we can answer them most effectively. So we look forward to answering additional questions. a common question that we hear is, how do I get Narcan in the county? Nyla, can you answer that question for us?
I usually deter or ask Katie that question. Katie, do you mind speaking to that? Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everyone. My name is Katie. I am the coordinator with Napa Opioid Safety Coalition. Different ways that you can get Narcan. The first is being online through Next Distro. That's a nonprofit organization that does a lot of harm reduction efforts out of Oakland, California. So if you go to nextdistro.com, they'll have you watch a little video and answer like 3 or 4 learning questions, and you can actually get it mailed directly to you. Our coalition also does community distributions, and our next community distribution is going to be next Wednesday, November 2nd at St. Helena High School from 3:30 to 5:30. So if you're around the area or can make it up to visit us, we would love for you, now that you've gone through this training, to pick up some Narcan. And then if you cannot make that date, if you visit our website that I'll share actually in the chat, we do try to do community distributions at least once a month. So you can always visit then and see if you're available to pick it up then.
Great, thank you, Katie, for that information. Another question has come forward. Do they have Narcan in the schools? Meaning, is there Narcan available to be used in the schools themselves? Great question, probably for Celeste and Dulce, or whomever else on the panel feels they can answer that most effectively.
Yeah, I know that Dulce can speak more to the what they have available at Aldea, but to my knowledge, it is not available at the schools because they probably wouldn't think that it's going to be happening at the schools, but that is definitely something that can be brought up to NBUSD, and I'm positive it's something that can be easily remedied. Dulce, if you want to speak to the Narcan that's available at Aldea.
Yeah, so I believe we're in the works of getting Narcan. We just had some people trained through Aldea. But as of the schools, I think similarly, Celeste, I don't believe that they have Narcan available at the schools at this time.
I think that is definitely a policy piece that can probably is likely to become more common over time, but is not dissimilar to other emergency services or emergency supplies that many schools have on site. It probably just takes a little bit of community action, and in the schools, the loudest voice that the school district listens to is that of parents. So it's a great place to start. Another question comes, where do they have Narcan once a month? And I guess that speaks to, is there a distribution, a regular distribution of Narcan that's available on a monthly basis? Katie, I'm going to tag you for that question.
Hi, yeah, so there is not a regular distribution day that we do. It's pretty much whenever we have the resources and the connection to be able to set up a table or a booth somewhere, that is where we'll do our distributions. And so we'll partner with different organizations to try to get the word out there. But like I said, the best way to get that information is to check out our website or to email me directly, and I will be able to let you know when our next community distribution is.
Great, thanks so much, Katie. Another question is, how is law enforcement approaching the SANS and illegal distribution locally and online?
Hi, that's a great question. Ryan Woolworth from Napa Special Investigations Bureau. We have seen a lot of illegal sales online on Snapchat and different social media sites. Our Investigations Bureau, we do have undercover accounts of undercover officers that are working these. We've had a handful of cases already this year where we have caught some people that are selling, where it could be mushrooms. They're selling pills, fentanyl, cocaine, anything you can think of is being sold online. But a lot of it is being directed towards our youth in Snapchat and Instagram, things like that. So we do have undercover detectives that are working those cases. And at the end of the day, our biggest source of information is the community. So we absolutely ask for everybody to help us in this fight to, save our youth and keep our community safe. We do have a tip line at 707-224-3784. And you can call us and be completely anonymous, just provide information on what kind of drugs are out there, what you're seeing, who might be responsible for supplying that. When we'll do our best to investigate that and get those people into custody. Thank you.
Great, Lieutenant. Could you please state that anonymous tip line one more time?
Yes, Doctor. It's 707-224-3784.
Thank you. Another question is a little bit long, but I'll be happy to read it because it often comes up in these discussions. So how is it possible that we have only 6 overdoses in fentanyl when I know of 4 from ages 19 to 40? I just had 2 people die from overdose. Why aren't the statistics showing online for us to be able to see how many overdoses are happening and how many have died? Being a parent and an aunt that's lost a child to this epidemic. So what's going to happen from the police department handling these cases and finding the drug dealers that sell it? Lots of really important issues that you raise there around, first of all, just the devastation that happens when our community, individuals, families just like yours experience this. It is devastating. And we often find that more information can be really helpful. And so I can absolutely understand your concern about how do we find out about these events? How can they be better? How can more people in our community be made aware of this problem, and where can we learn more about what's happening from the legal and enforcement perspective? So today is about giving people more information from the data sources that we have, and it also is about giving some transparency and light as to what is happening in the law enforcement perspective as well. So I think I would like to have, I'm going to divide these questions up just a little bit because the data question is challenging. And I'm wondering if that's for Paul Kuhn, if you can give us an answer to that question, or if it's also from Lieutenant Woolworth again.
Sure, I'll speak to the first part of it regarding statistics. And so it's very difficult from a street standpoint, which the lieutenant can speak to better than I can. But for us, we've had reports of multiple people overdosing in Napa or in Napa County. If those people get transported out of county, whether it be by flight, by ambulance, then those stats and those people are not going to come to our coroner's office. If they become deceased, they're going to go to whatever coroner's office for whatever county they happen to be in. Also, there's a lot of reports of people who either are poisoned, overdose by fentanyl, but we can't put up any statistics and we can't confirm any numbers until we have scientific proof. So we can't go by a family member or a friend saying somebody used fentanyl, or even if there's fentanyl there, we have to wait after an autopsy or examination is done. Those results come from a toxicology lab that takes up to a couple months to get. After that, it needs to be reviewed, the entire case, by our pathologist before a cause of death is issued for it. This process takes months. That's why our stats are behind. We recently had a coroner symposium for the entire state. Unfortunately, it's a frustration for all counties. It's not just ours on how to collate this information. As far as why those stats aren't available online consistently, part of it is because we don't know where to draw the line. People who lose family members due to meth intoxication, we still have a lot of those. People whose family members die from vehicle accidents, drownings, we typically put these stats out in our year-end report, which comes out the first few months of a year for the entire year prior.
Great, thanks for the answer. And Lieutenant Woolworth, can you just speak again to some of the steps that our legal and enforcement system is taking toward finding the sources through the source of sales online, et cetera, and how that can be mitigated from a legal perspective?
Absolutely. One of the biggest steps that we've taken in the last 6 months is we being the Napa Special Investigations Bureau are responding out to any kind of an overdose or suspected fentanyl is at play. So we will go out there, we will do our investigations, we'll try to gain cooperation from any witnesses that might provide information on suppliers, try to gain access to a cell phone that might have information on there. And once again, we do our best trying to get the cooperation of the people involved. And in some circumstances, we will write a search warrant and seize the cell phone for that information. But for the most part, we've been getting a lot of cooperation from the community and providing that information.
Great, thanks so much. Please look into the chat for the website at which you can find Narcan distribution through the Napa Opiate Safety Coalition. And then there's a couple of questions about how are the high schools doing prevention awareness rallies, followed by a comment that sales are happening at schools. How is the school district helping to control and monitor this, and this being fentanyl sales, besides closing the bathrooms? Is NBUSD on this call? So just quickly, we can talk a little bit. Celeste and Dulce can just give another high-level overview of what's happening within the school districts to address education and prevention as well as awareness. Go ahead, Celeste.
Thank you. So NBUSD actually isn't on this call today, but I can say that we are working with NBUSD to host these wellness days. So part of wellness days is substance use reduction and awareness. But in terms of big rallies, that's been really hard to schedule just because it takes away from education time. But we have been trying to schedule them. Every school is different, and we have to work with their school and with their schedule to be able to schedule like a rally where all the students would be able to be there and take away from that school time. So we are working on it. However, the wellness days, which are in the works right now, with one happening at Napa High next week, that will be the first official. And then in terms of the schools and how they monitor, I'm going to hand that over to Lisa.
So when we do our prevention outreach at the schools, we actually, like Celeste said, it really depends on the school as well, how they would like their outreach efforts. The school will decide like what type of classroom they want us to do outreach, if they want to do an email blast for the youth. But at the beginning of every year, we present to students the services that we have available under prevention, but parents can also self-refer their youth to these services through the Wellness Center. So if at that point they, maybe don't know if their youth has self-referred themselves, you as a parent can also reach out to the school and give your student's name as a referral to prevention services. We also participate in these wellness days. We table at the schools during their back to school nights. But again, it really just all depends on the school and what they prefer, what their preference is for outreach. But this is also a place where you as parents can request the schools. I also do parent presentations to educate those specific parents at those schools. And I could do them at elementary schools, middle schools, high schools, but it really depends on parent interest as well.
Thank you. Another question is, can I give my child Narcan to have in her backpack, maybe save a friend? Absolutely. So children, you can, if your child is distributed, or if you're able to get the Narcan through the Narcan distribution, you can actually put that in her backpack, and she's trained, she can use it to treat a friend or someone she doesn't know at a big school. I'm wondering, why would my child be tempted to take this, or what would the seller tell them that could happen? Maybe you assume that's going to be some kind of a high, but I mean, what is this drug supposed to do? I'm not a drug user or alcohol, wondering how children are being targeted. I just don't understand. So I think that it is difficult to understand exactly how these substances can be so appealing to young children, except that we do know that part of the adolescent developmental period does favor experimentation, trying new things. The idea of getting high does have appeal to kids and adults, but certainly to youth. And so I think that the way that the drug dealers appeal to students to youth is to sell them on this notion of feeling high, feeling better. And the marketing that we see specifically with fentanyl really is targeted toward children, with bright colors, and making it also just very easy for them to access it in avenues that maybe adults don't use as much, specifically using social media. Is there any other panelists that would like to add to that comment?
I would like to add as well. I think one of the things about substance use is that it doesn't necessarily start with fentanyl, right? There's a lot of other substance use that comes before it. So it's sometimes that increase in tolerance as well. So it's a buildup to these things. So it's not necessarily here's this fentanyl, this is going to be great, but it's you like that, here's what's next. And sometimes it's really not even advertised as fentanyl, right? Like we're saying it's really laced in any other substance that can be made into a pill form as well.
Right, so students may not be trying to actually access fentanyl, but maybe trying to access a different drug and they're not aware that there is fentanyl within it. Thank you, Dulce, for that clarification. I'm going to move to the question that asks, what's the webpage for the organization in Oakland that distributes Narcan? I'm going to ask Katie if you already did it. She put it in the chat already for nextdistro.org. And then another question relates to, is there a self-help group for parents that have lost children to addiction? Who would like to address that question? So currently in Napa, I'm not aware of an organized group that's addressing this loss. We do know that there are services for people who have lost loved ones through hospice, but definitely losing a loved one to addiction can feel different. And there is not an organized group currently in Napa that supports parents who lost children to addiction. Yep, there's a comment about the rallies in schools for homecoming, football, sports, but not drug prevention and awareness. Seems like it could be a top priority, and I agree. And again, as the Napa Opioid Safety Coalition, we do know that within the school district that parents' voices carry a lot of influence in terms of what can be added or what types of education or exposures your children have in the school environment. If a child is using marijuana recreationally, what help is available to prevent escalation to fentanyl? I'm going to push that one out to Dulce as well, given your expertise in child drug use. Thank you.
So I think the biggest thing is obviously education. So we could start with prevention services. However, if they're using substances where they're looking for the next high, their tolerances is increasing and it's not recreational use anymore, but it's dependent use, treatment services would be what would be most appropriate for that youth at that point. And like I said, Aldea provides both prevention and treatment services. And even if a youth does come in through prevention services, our prevention counselors are able to screen the youth to see what services they would most be appropriate for.
Great. So it sounds like the answer to that question is to contact Aldea if you are concerned about your child using marijuana or other substances to provide preventive education as well as treatment if that becomes necessary. And she may be having a hard time with her audio, so I'll just say, it is not too young to start the conversation with your children in middle school. It's important to start the conversation about having conversations and getting help with your primary medical provider if you need it to carry on that conversation, or getting in touch with organizations like Aldea to understand more about how to start that conversation. Well, thank you all for a really wonderful session of questions, really great questions that get to the heart of why we came together tonight. We really appreciate you spending time with us this evening, learning more about fentanyl. And I want to also talk with you a little bit about some upcoming events that are coming up in the Napa area shortly. So this Saturday, October 29th, is a drug take back day. This is where all unused medications and sharps can be collected. Here are the drop-off areas in Napa. This is an at least annual event where you can drop off expired or current medications that you no longer need, prescriptions that are unused or unwanted in your household, and you can get rid of them safely, environmentally in this way. It is completely anonymous. You can just come to these locations between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. and drop off any medications or sharps that you're ready to get rid of. And Narcan distribution, just another reminder, our next Narcan distribution is November 2nd at St. Helena High School, 3:30 to 5:30. We do have a limited supply of this coming through the Napa Opioid Safety Coalition, and the supply is limited to 1 per person. So again, thank you so much for joining us this evening. We appreciate your attention to this matter. We appreciate your solidarity in working in your families and your communities and working with us in the school districts to help raise awareness with students and with schools to help reduce and eliminate fentanyl within our schools, within our school districts. If you have any questions, please reach out to the Napa Opioid Safety Coalition at napaopioidsafetycoalition.com. Or at gmail.com, and then utilize the alcohol and drug services page at countyofnapa.org for more information. We will post these links again in the chat so you have access to them. Thank you again for your time. I really appreciate the presenters for your information and for sharing, for your candidacy, and appreciate all you've given to us this evening. Thanks so much.